President Donald Trump's proposals and campaign promises led the news in Arizona for 2017.
The United States of America gets back control of its borders.
And changes to the Affordable Care Act dominated the health discussions in the state.
Since 2014, we've almost halved our uninsured in Arizona.
2017, the year in review. This is Arizona Week. Hello and welcome to Arizona Week. I'm Christopher Conover in for Lorraine Rivera. The winter holidays are officially in full swing, so we here at Arizona Public Media are taking a look back at 2017. The year began where 2016 left off, with President Donald Trump making news for Arizona. Just days after taking office, the president issued an executive order.
Beginning today, the United States of America gets back control of its borders, gets back its borders.
The president's executive order on the border and immigration signed during his first week in office had 3 points: expand the border wall, hire thousands more Border Patrol agents, and increase the number of Customs and Border Protection agents.
We are going to get the bad ones out, the criminals and the drug dealers and gangs and gang members and cartel leaders. The day is over when they can stay in our country and wreak havoc.
2 weeks later, President Trump sent then Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly to Nogales.
We have a federal job to do down here on the border, and we'll try to do that, but I can't do it. Couldn't imagine doing it without talking to men like yourselves that know the border better than anyone.
Santa Cruz County Sheriff Tony Estrada said the secretary listened and didn't come to dictate to local officials.
From San Diego to Brownsville, it requires different approaches. Some places you may not even need a wall, and he doesn't know exactly what kind of a design will be applied depending on the terrain.
Pima County Sheriff Mark Napier said Kelly's visit allowed him and others to educate the secretary about Arizona's unique issues.
There are going to be challenges on the Tonawata Indian Reservation. Their receptivity to having intrusions onto the tribal lands is a very sensitive issue. There's also areas that are environmentally sensitive along our border. So there are places where technology and human resources may be a wall.
The sheriffs at the meeting agreed that dialogue is good.
If we're going to solve border security issues, we need to have 3 levels of government working: your local, your state, and your federal. And that includes Governor Ducey, who was there today also.
Arizona's border with Mexico is more than 350 miles, more than 200 of which already have walls or fencing. The president's promise to build a wall is moving forward. Contractors have built demo versions in California. The first new wall segments will not be in Arizona. The president returned to Arizona in August and visited Border Patrol agents in Yuma. He then went to Phoenix for a campaign-style rally.
Our movement is a movement built on love. It's love for fellow citizens. It's love for struggling Americans who've been left behind, and love for every American child who deserves a chance to have all of their dreams come true.
The president's speech came not long after Arizona Senator John McCain cast the deciding vote ending an attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act, putting him in the presidential crosshairs.
Please, please, Mr. President, don't mention any names. So I won't. Think we were just one vote away from victory after 7 years of everybody proclaiming repeal and replace. One vote away. One vote away. And nobody wants me to talk about your other senator who's weak on borders, weak on crime, so I won't talk about him.
Senator Jeff Flake announced in the fall that he would not run for re-election, saying the atmosphere in the Republican Party made it so he couldn't win. The president also stepped into Arizona politics by talking about Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who at that point had been recently convicted of federal contempt of court.
Do the people in this room like Sheriff Joe? Was Sheriff Joe convicted for doing his job? That's what. He should have had a jury, but you know what? I'll make a prediction. I think he's going to be just fine, okay?
Days later, the president pardoned Arpaio. Outside the August Trump rally in Phoenix, thousands of people protested.
Despite the heat and it's miserable out here, I can't stay silent anymore. I mean, I've been opposed to this guy from the beginning, but I'm Jewish and I'm gay, and this guy is the antithesis of everything that this country stands for. And it's just amazing to me that so many thousands of people are still drinking his Kool-Aid.
That protest remained peaceful until after the president's speech ended and Phoenix police told participants to leave. Then police moved in. 4 people were arrested.
Thank you, Arizona. God bless you.
The president left Phoenix without incident.
Less than a month after his visit to Phoenix, President Trump said the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, better known as DACA, would end in 6 months. It sent thousands in Arizona scrambling for stability.
As soon as the president's decision was announced, rallies like this one on the University of Arizona campus supporting DACA recipients, many known as Dreamers, began. Arizona Public Media spoke with some of those students.
It definitely poses a threat to not only our immediate future, but also our long-term future. As a student, my main concern is staying in school and finishing my degree so that I can have a better future and that my parents' sacrifices will be worth it. And knowing that I'm in an institution that doesn't necessarily welcome me or fight for me doesn't help in these situations. And they often just follow what the law says and aren't willing to push the boundaries and willing to fight for their students.
I'm also a DACA recipient, have been since 2015. I've been involved with the Immigrant Student Resource Center and Scholarships AZ. Now, the fight's been going on for many years, and this is just another blow in the immigrant community. So with that in mind, we're still going to keep pushing. I'm still trying to, go against, what has already been set, what the law says, because at the end of the day, the law isn't in our favor.
And to kind of show the world that although this does hurt us and it does impact our future immensely, we're not going to give up. We're still going to be resilient, we're still going to thrive, and we're still going to succeed.
The protests supporting DACA spread across the nation, including one in New York City in front of Trump Tower. 3 members of Congress, including Southern Arizona Representative Raul Grijalva, were at the rally. They reportedly blocked traffic and refused to leave. Congressman Grijalva and his colleagues were arrested. To help DACA recipients navigate the legal waters surrounding renewal, the Mexican consulate provided one-on-one consultations with immigration attorneys. Lorraine Rivera sat down with the Mexican consulate in Tucson.
Tell us about this event today. Why start this?
Well, we opened since the very beginning, no? We have different programs at the consulate in order to assist the community. When we know about this regrettable happening about the resigning of DACA program, we decided to open not only on weekdays but also every weekend. So we are here to help the community, and we're going to do every effort to provide service to them, especially the so-called Dreamers.
What does the Mexican government want these DACA recipients to know about what's available to them should they end up back in Mexico?
That our government and us are with them. Then don't hesitate to contact us. We think that is the most valuable people for our country. If they decide to go back to Mexico, we're fully prepared to receive them. But we know that they have grown here, they have interest in being over here, they have studied here, they have their families here, so we are here to help them. So we do respect to the U.S. sovereignty, not because the U.S. government is sovereign in order to decide the best way to apply the migratory policies. We fully respect that. But we want to help in any possible way, with the help of attorneys, with the help of every way or means that Mexico's government has, now, which is through us giving them consular assistance. We are fully prepared for that.
Should these DACA recipients end up back in Mexico, what sort of life or resources await them?
We have put a number of resources, not only job offerings, but the possibility for them to be immediately included in the education system. No, and also, we are here in Mexico to receive them. If they decide to go, well, we know that they are educated, they speak English, they speak Spanish, they can be fully incorporated to the economic life in our country. For us, it's part of the most valuable treasure. They are young people, fully educated, that for sure are going to contribute to our economy and society, same as they have been doing here in the U.S.
Lorraine also spoke with a DACA recipient seeking help at the consulate. He's 23 and has been in the U.S. since he was just a year old.
As I understand it, here the Mexican consulate is giving you information about if you should end up in Mexico, about working and school. Does any of that help you feel better?
No, because I don't know. I'm not even a citizen over there, I think. I'm not sure. I have the birth certificate and everything from there, but I don't know.
I saw you working with the attorney today. She's sort of preparing you for what could happen in the event of you also going back to Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you think about that?
All the time. See what would happen if I go back, because I don't know nothing that's over there. I don't even know my hometown.
So you said you were born in Cananea, brought to the U.S. when you were 1, but you've not been back since.
Been here my whole life.
So how do you consider yourself? I mean, how would you describe yourself? Are you an American?
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm Mexican. It's like both, I guess, but it's just complicated. I don't know.
How has your life changed in the last 2 weeks since President Trump made the announcement?
Very nervous, couldn't sleep at night, couldn't eat at some point. It was scary.
And you explained that your personal situation, mom and dad, well, your dad has
he has Amica for 1 year, and then he has to renew it.
Okay, so it's a work visa?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, and your mom is not documented?
No, she's not.
And then you have little brothers and sisters?
Yes.
Who are U.S. citizens?
Yep.
Have they all talked about how your life changes?
Yeah, they have. They were scared too. They were, what's going to happen if you go back to Mexico? And I was like, I don't know.
So you're a graduate of a local high school here in Tucson?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said earlier that you're not sure that you're American or that you're Mexican.
Yeah.
So what do you tell people if they were to ask you?
I just I guess Mexican. But I talk more English than Spanish, so yeah.
And your work life? I mean, you get up and go to work like everybody else?
Yeah, in the mornings, 7:30, out the door, get to work by 8, see if the trucks are loaded, and take off to Nogales, Arizona. Pass through the checkpoint every day.
What do you say when you go through a checkpoint?
Well, they haven't stopped us recently, but they asked U.S. citizen, and I say no, and then they ask me, what do you have, and I give them my card. And then they just tell me, oh, it expires soon. I'm like, yeah, I know. And they let us go.
What card is it that you have?
The DACA.
You said you're 23?
Yeah, 23.
And you do not go to school?
No, not yet.
Why not?
I don't know if I qualify for financial aid. I think I do, I'm not sure. I have to investigate more on that.
What kind of education are you interested in? Are you interested in any career?
Being a police officer.
A police officer? Okay, wonderful.
One of the biggest stories about how federal policies could affect Arizona was in health care. Throughout this year, Congress debated several versions of reforms to the Affordable Care Act. In May, the American Health Care Act passed the U.S. House and was waiting for a vote in the Senate. None of the plans to repeal the Affordable Care Act passed this year. Lorraine Rivera took a look at what the Affordable Care Act has meant in Arizona.
In 2012, before the Affordable Care Act, 3.3 million people, that's about half the state's population, had insurance sponsored by their employer. More than 1 million people and children received services through Medicaid. About 12% had Medicare benefits, and the uninsured made up about 18%. 4 years later, 2016, after the Affordable Care Act took effect, nearly 3 million people, about 41% of the state's population, had insurance through their employer. Nearly 2 million people, including children, were covered by Medicaid. About 950,000 had Medicare. The uninsured had fallen to about 770,000. That's about 11% of the state's population. Individuals purchasing insurance on the federal marketplace made up 4% of the state's population. These numbers provided to us by Dr. Daniel Dirksen at the University of Arizona Center for Rural Health.
Yeah, Arizona's made remarkable progress in the last 5 years since some of these provisions went into place that expanded coverage. Since 2014, we've almost halved our uninsured in Arizona. And there's a correlation, a very strong correlation, with the reduction in uncompensated and charity care that hospitals had to absorb. Their fiscal margins have improved over the last couple of years to where even our rural and critical access hospitals, the smallest hospitals, the ones that are really in the areas that need them the most, have really seen an improvement, a healthier bottom line.
As the bill to repeal the Affordable Care Act struggled to pass in the House and Senate, Arizona health advocates tried to educate the public about what it would mean. Arizona Public Media's Zach Ziegler went to one community forum.
About 650 people packed the ballroom of the Doubletree Hotel across from Reed Park Monday night to learn about health care. Among them is Warren Deming.
Personally, I feel that health care is a right, that as a responsible community member, that it's important for us to have coverage.
Deming and others came to hear from a panel of doctors, health executives, and academics about possible changes to health care law. Their worries go beyond political and philosophical beliefs. Many are here because it could affect their livelihood.
And I'm very concerned about people losing their Medicaid, Medicare services, what it will mean to Pima County in terms of services for children, for the opioid epidemic that we seem to be experiencing here.
Well, in my own practice, I saw many instances of people having difficult times getting care. And since retirement, I've been working in a Southside free clinic, which takes people with no insurance, and it's even more difficult for them to get care, especially hospital care.
The event was put on by Tucson Medical Center. Hospital staff members say they've been bombarded with questions about the new Republican health care bills, so they set up this event.
And Tucson Medical Center, as an acute care facility and a health care facility, felt that it was our responsibility to bring people together tonight so that we could answer myths and theories with the actual facts.
Panelists answered questions about the Republican-authored bills, offering a general consensus that they would negatively impact health in a variety of ways. They expect cuts to the number of people covered by the state's Medicaid program, the Arizona Health Care Cost Containment System.
The House bill is estimated to lead to 23 million Americans losing their health coverage. The Senate version, 22 million. 300 to 400,000 Arizonans in all likelihood, and that's not going to be good for them.
Those cuts would come to a program that they say is lean and well run.
Arizona has been a model access program, a model Medicaid program. Efficient, fabulous outcomes. Just in our population alone, we've been able to drive down use of emergency rooms and unnecessary hospitalizations by about 25%.
State health insurance would not be alone. Municipal health departments would also lose funding. Pima County would lose about 40% of its health care budget if the Affordable Care Act were completely repealed, according to its director.
Healthcare issues in 2017 were not all about politics. In June, Governor Doug Ducey declared a state of emergency due to a spike in the number of opioid-related deaths. Nearly 800 people died due to opioid use in 2016, a 74% increase in just 4 years. More than half of Arizona's drug-related deaths were tied to opioids. Lorraine spoke to a physician about the growing opioid problem in the state.
About 20 years ago, there was a change in medical culture that suggested that we be more aggressive in treating acute and chronic pain using these opioid medications. And we created a large population of people that were managed with long-term opiate and opioid medications. And that's where we're seeing the problem now, because a lot of those people with this addiction, this chemical dependency, are shifting to the use of heroin and fentanyl and other illicit opioids.
In your line of work, you treat the whole gamut of patients.
Oh yeah, it knows no socioeconomic, demographic boundaries. It affects younger and younger people, middle-aged people, older Americans who have been maintained on opiate medications and now are facing this problem. Genders are about the same now, about 50-50, and it's 1 degree of separation. Everybody knows somebody with this problem.
In education, Governor Doug Ducey began the year by proposing raises for every teacher, helping prospective teachers pay for college and expanding all-day kindergarten. We'll begin with Lorraine Rivera's interview after he made those proposals.
What is your ultimate goal, your vision for improving Arizona's education?
Well, I want to see every one of our kids have the opportunity for a quality education. That means at the end of 12 years in kindergarten inside a public school that you've got some skills to go to college, to begin a career, to pursue a trade, that you know how to read and write and add and subtract and think critically, that you have options in your life. That's what all parents want. And I'll tell you, every other problem I have in public policy, Lorraine, would be solved if we could have our kids graduating with those skills to go on and have productive lives and fulfilling careers.
There are a lot of people already questioning, where does this money come from?
Well, the money's going to come from the state budget. If people remember, we were through a tremendous downturn. The recession was incredibly hard on Arizona. The first year, we were talking all about the budget and balancing it and the painful decisions and reductions that we had to make. Last year, we passed Prop 123. We were able to put $3.5 billion additional dollars into K-12 education. Now we have a foundation of success and momentum. I want to continue that, and I want to focus on our teachers, and it's time to get Arizona teachers a raise.
Now, most state lawmakers agree more needs to be accomplished in education. The question is, how will that be paid for?
We should be investing in education, absolutely no doubt. He's touching on all the buttons that clearly people agree with across the party boundaries. We've got to invest in our education at all levels. But that's not going to take more than $24 million in existing funds. And you can't promise you're going to reduce taxes again, yet again, in a way that doesn't help this state, while at the same time funding these programs.
State Senator Steve Farley is now running for governor, hoping to win the Democratic primary to then face Governor Ducey. State lawmakers passed a budget in the spring that accomplished many of the governor's funding goals, including teacher pay raises. But advocacy groups said it didn't go far enough, especially in terms of teacher raises, which came in at less than 1%.
The biggest concern is that this is a continuation of the status quo. We had money available in the budget to do a big, bold investment in what we do know really drives results in the classroom, which is having a qualified, certified teacher in front of the students. And unfortunately, the priorities in this budget don't support keeping teachers in the classroom. So we're really disappointed in that wasn't necessarily the big, bold next step that we had anticipated following the passage of Prop 123.
It seemed before the budget passed that there was some hope that perhaps there would be something that advocacy groups like you're involved with would be happy with or happier with.
Yes. We had a great deal of hope, if for no other reason than to have a budget proposal which we put forward, which found the available dollars and found 3 other revenue sources that did not require a tax increase. We had hope that what it would do is it would provide a moderating component, right? So that it would push from the 0.4% as the governor had proposed, not necessarily a full 4%. We were really kind of hoping for a bolder, close to a 2% this year, but really had hoped that the 4% would have come through in the end. We thought that we know that we had a lot of public support behind us.
Also this year, the state debated expanding education vouchers for students to use at private schools. State Senator Debbie Lesko sponsored the bill.
I expand the ESA program with my bill over a 4-year period to all children. And that's the way that it should be. That's how charter schools started. We shouldn't be picking and choosing which children get better educational opportunities.
Senator Lesko's proposed expansion of empowerment scholarships, or ESAs, would give parents $5,200 a year for educational expenses, including private school tuition. The idea is a hot issue in the state with a clear demarcation.
For the simple fact that they divert public revenues into private funds, or to private schools, I'm sorry, and just overall, in the current climate with the growing teacher shortage, increased capital needs, we just can't support anything that would take money away from solving those issues into funding private schools.
I think that's really a false narrative, because right now our current system, if a child leaves a district school and moves over to a charter school, the district school no longer has that money because they're not teaching the child anymore. And so that's the same thing with the ESA.
The measure was approved, then a citizens' initiative blocked the bill from taking effect. Voters will decide next year whether to expand the state's voucher program. Also this year, State Attorney General Mark Brnovich filed suit against the Arizona Board of Regents over tuition increases at the state's 3 universities.
I kept hearing the regents and the university presidents talk about the importance of making education accessible to everyone and how the framers of our Constitution wanted everyone to be educated. And I thought to myself, yes, that's correct. I know that. And in fact, if you read our Constitution, it says that education, public instruction, or universities is supposed to be nearly as free as possible. So my question became, well, wait a minute, why are they just focused on this group of about 300 students? Why aren't we asking a bigger and broader question regarding tuition for all Arizonans? Why is it that in-state tuition in this state has skyrocketed?
Certainly the phenomenon across America has been for increased tuition, and largely it's because we've seen really a disinvestment in public higher education across the country, and Arizona was hit very hard by the recession. So many of the tuition increases have been a result of trying to make sure that universities have the operating revenue they need, but it's important to remember that most of our tuition increases have been coupled by state aid, and that's why we're able to keep tuition affordable.
Last week, the Board of Regents filed a motion to have a lawsuit filed by Attorney General Mark Brnovich thrown out. The suit alleges that Arizona's 3 public universities, quote, dramatically and unconstitutionally increased the price of tuition over the last 15 years. It should be noted that the Board of Regents holds the license for this station. And that wraps up our look at 2017. It also brings Arizona Week to an end. We'll be back in January with an all-new show, Arizona 360, hosted by Lorraine Rivera. I'm Christopher Conover. Thanks for watching, and here's a sneak peek of what's to come.
The issues and what they mean, the stories and how they impact you, and the discussion that helps you understand it all. I'm Lorraine Rivera. We're launching a new program that takes a 360-degree look at the stories and how they connect to your world. Arizona 360, coming January 5th to PBS 6.